Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to go on a balcony tour. So I'm going to take you on the very last balcony tour of 2021. So let's get straight into it.
Here's how the garden looked towards the end of August. It was absolutely bursting with colour. And here we are, late December 2021. It's looking very different. But despite the storms and the winds, there's still plenty of green.
You guys know me, I'm not about trying to pretend that everything is perfect. The place is pretty messy, but there's reasons for it. So I start off with this pile of leaves down here, and basically what I've been doing is a whole load of pruning, and all of this stuff I'm going to leave and let it dry out a bit, and I'm going to reuse it as mulch. It's really important to me to try and reuse things where I can, and if I'm being honest, you know, I'm 18 floors up. I can't really be bothered going up and down the stairs every 2 minutes carrying a whole heap of rubbish, so it's in my best interest as well to reuse what I can.
In the first of my surprises, we've got these guys here. These are Gaillardia. I sowed these, I think midsummer, and I saw nothing, and yet they're choosing now, the very end of December, to flower. Insane. And I've showed you these before. These are lettuce. Now I have not sowed a single one of these lettuce plants, and they are doing amazingly well. I'm going to be using the cut and come again method with these and just snipping off whatever it is that I want to eat. Poor old Tim, my passion vine, has got some invaders, and they seem to be doing really well as well. In comparison, these are the lettuce seeds that I sowed myself, and forget it. Another disaster. Speaking of, last time I showed you the herb tower, it had been knocked over by the wind, but this oregano is absolutely thriving. In fact, it's getting so big, I'm going to do some chopping and propping. And right next to the oregano, I have some marjoram. It's very, very similar to oregano. It's a little bit sweeter. Surprisingly, it is not frost hardy at all, but yet look at it. Then down below, I've got some parsley in here, and that is doing absolutely fine. First glance, you'll probably be thinking, what on earth are these twigs? Well, in actual fact, it's my blackcurrant plant. We're in December, and the buds are already forming for next year. Speaking of, this is my rose bush. It's called a Benedict Britain, I think it is. Now, I've not really touched her at all. She started to produce new leaves. This mess of a basket is actually, it's a basket full of weeds. But underneath, it does house some of my strawberry plants. The weeds produce some flowers that the bees go absolutely wild for. I'm predicting that these will probably be one of the first things to flower next year, which means that any insects that emerge early will have a food source. It's absolutely crazy to me that in the middle of December there's so much green still on my garden.
You may remember that in this container I planted some spinach, but I also sowed some radish seeds. I think that was around about a week or so ago. They've already germinated and they're starting to make their way up through the soil.
Don't know what it is, but there's something so cool about seeing the first 2 leaves pop up through the soil. The view never gets old.
One of the reasons why I wanted to do this balcony tour was to show you my perennials. They are bursting into life, even though we're in December. It's pretty insane. Let me show you a couple of them.
Here's a throwback to my delphiniums and lupins in summer, and as you can see, Tracy loved them. I'm hoping to have even more bees next year. They died off and I cut them back, but as you can see, these lupins are coming right back. These tiny minuscule leaves are actually the delphiniums. In all honesty, I thought the plant had rotted away, so it was a real surprise to see these leaves shooting up. I cannot express just how grateful I am to walk out onto the garden and smell these scented geraniums. The smell is just gorgeous. I have several argyranthemum around the garden. They were literally sticks 2 months ago after flowering, and now, just like a bunch of my salvias and petunias, they are all producing new growth. I had completely cut back my salvia hot lips as well, and look, more new growth here too. In order to protect everything from the wind, I've condensed everything and tucked them in together. But here lies the problem. I have got absolutely no room for any new seeds for next year. In the last balcony tour, I showed you the struggle bus area. It's where I keep everything that looks busted, but will you look at this? This Anthemis is making new shoots right from the base. Most people will have thrown it away. This fuchsia looks dead, but it's beginning to make new growth. This Salvia African Skies is shooting out a whole ton of new growth. And if you look closely, even here, you can start to see some new leaves forming. You got a glimpse of Tim the passion fruit vine before, but let me just show you the scale of just how big he is. He's also continuously flowering, even in December. It's madness. In this next container I had my geraniums. They had been completely munched away by caterpillars, so I dug them up and replaced them with some chard and some kale. In this raised bed I've got some spring onions, beetroot and some beans. I have used my old trick with spring onions. You may remember if you've seen my cut and come again video where I essentially cut some spring onions and then let them regrow. I find that whenever I grow spring onions from seed, spring onions and lettuce, well, I can never get them to grow. And a lot of that is when they are young, they're quite weak, and with the winds they kind of knock them over, and then they end up touching the soil, and then once the leaves touch the soil, that's it, they're done, or at least that's my case up here. So every year I always continuously try to grow lettuce and then continuously fail, and it's the exact same with spring onions. So yeah, I've got some indoors that I'm growing in water as an experiment versus these guys, and the ones inside that are growing in water are growing a lot quicker than these guys in soil. It could obviously also be to do with the fact that it's warmer inside, but I just thought it would be an interesting experiment. Recently uploaded a YouTube short on my balcony pond, and it was just me doing some balcony pond maintenance. Now that I've cleared it out, the water is crystal clear again. Some of the vegetation got cut back and some algae removed. All of the vegetation in there grows so quickly due to all of that fish poop. Here I've got some hollyhocks. These were sown in December 2020 and haven't flowered. And then here I've got some snapdragons which have just finished flowering. This starship lobelia was around about 6 feet tall and is already starting to grow back. I've got some various different grasses as well. I'm not sure on all of their names. I've got another hollyhock at the top here. And then just beside it I have some Salvia African Skies. Then growing up the trellis I have this nasturtium. I thought she was over in the frost, but no, she's got different ideas. I've got yet another hollyhock up here. This is the biggest one. Again, it didn't flower, so I'm hoping that in 2022 I'm going to have a real showing. Now this container here at the front of the balcony pond, that is the only container that is empty on the whole garden. So I'm going to be growing my alliums in there. I just think that area is going to be absolutely stunning. I can't wait. Down this side of the garden I've got all of my brassicas and all of my veg. So let me show you what I've got down this side. This is the first batch of spinach that I've sown. And as you can see, the leaves are beginning to get a bit darker and a bit thicker. I can begin to harvest these outer leaves for baby spinach. In this container I've got my peas. I sowed these in the previous video. The 3 in the middle were transplanted, and as you can see they've hardly made any growth, whereas the others were directly sown into the container and they are almost catching up. Here I've got some petunias. They've just finished flowering, but I need to do some deadheading on here. Now it's quite tempting to just kind of pull the petals out of the socket, but you need to go a little bit further and take off the ovaries, because otherwise the plant will continue to make seeds and not flower. Now these flowers are absolutely ridiculous. They're called Nemesia. It was only a couple of inches tall when I bought it, but now it is just taking over everything. But I don't care because the flowers are so beautiful, and these guys are perennials. They should have died off ages ago, but nope, it has got other ideas. Confession time, I've not even cut it back at all. So I think I'm going to add that to my to-do list. You guys knew it was coming. The tomatoes, look at them. This is insane. Now I've really tidied them up. I've pruned everything back and it's still going so strong, and look, they are literally ripening on the vine. I cannot believe that I'm going to be able to harvest tomatoes on Christmas Day. Amazing.
Finally, we've hit the brassica patch. This is probably a little bit excessive. So growing here, I've got some kale, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbages, and some dinosaur kale as well.
This side of the garden gets the most sunlight, so it's absolutely jam-packed full of as many plants as I can get. Pretty confident I'll be able to get all of them to full size. I'm continuously harvesting from the dinosaur kale. A few weeks time I'll be able to harvest the green cabbage as well. Some of the red cabbage I'm specifically just growing for the leaves. I allowed this red cabbage to go to seed, and as you can see, it is still 3 months later still producing seed pods. So I'm gonna harvest these and I'm gonna use those for microgreens. I just can't get over how impressive this dinosaur kale is. Oh, and it tastes delicious as well. In my what to grow in winter video, I showed you how to grow potatoes in containers. They've not come to the surface just yet, but there is some volunteer lettuce and mustard growing in the container, and I'm not mad at it. These geraniums are just non-stop growers. I absolutely love them. They are continuously flowering, and they're probably my most reliable flower that I have on my garden. A bit further down the garden, we've got even more flowers and plants that have exited the struggle bus area. Just look at the growth of some of these. You go back to my very last balcony garden tour, I showed you what all of these plants look like in the struggle bus area. Most people probably would have thrown them away, but I just didn't want to give up on them, and now that I can see them here, all I can think about is the blooms that I'm going to get at the start of spring. At the moment, the temperatures are really quite mild for December. We're looking at 10 degrees. Biggest concern is what happens next year when we actually start to get wintry weather. All the progress that these plants are making are going to get wiped out. I have to give credit to this chili plant. It managed to push out one last fruit.
Wow, this is so exciting. Right guys, so in my second raised bed container, I've got some garlic, some beetroot, and I've also got some more beans actually in here, but I've just seen my garlic has just started to break the surface, so let me see if I can get a good shot.
I absolutely love growing garlic, but I've never managed to grow garlic to completion. Well, honestly, I think that's probably because I harvest the leaves too much. I add them to all of my salads and as garnishes. These poor old battered leaves belong to my grapevine. It actually grew more in autumn than it did in summer, but is beginning to die off a little bit now. Not a day goes by where I come out here and I'm not shocked at something on this garden. It's absolutely incredible.
I hope you guys have enjoyed the tour, and thank you so much for hanging out with me. Hopefully I'll see you again soon. Bye!
This year's gone by so quickly, and this channel's grown immensely. I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone for joining the CG family. I thought I'd leave you with another sunset on the cloud garden. See you again soon. Bye!